Welcome to a new investigation. Today we delve into the mystery of the Titanic, that disaster shrouded in as many questions as the fog of that night. And what we have today is truly fascinating, a collection of documents that suggest there is something more behind the official story. One perceives that curiosity, that need to go beyond the simple facts and understand the true why of this tragedy that still moves us. To guide us in this investigation, we have several clues, press articles that explore alternative theories, the Wikipedia entry on Titanic conspiracy theories, and even fragments with very specific claims. Our mission today is to shed light on these theories, separate fact from speculation, and hopefully offer you a clearer, though perhaps more disturbing, picture of what really happened. Our goal is to unravel the most intriguing alternative theories about the sinking of the Titanic. We will analyze the evidence, or the lack thereof, and reflect on why these stories continue to captivate us after more than a century. Let's start with one that has gained strength over time, the shadow of fire. The idea is that an existing fire could have weakened the Titanic's hull before its encounter with the iceberg. What I find fascinating is the chronology. It is suggested that this fire was not something from the maiden voyage, but that it could have started during construction in Belfast or even before leaving Southampton. Imagine the Colossus already with a secret wound. It is said that the fire, probably in a coal bunker, burned for days or even weeks. And that heat is intense. The hypothesis is that this extreme heat affected the hull steel, making it more fragile. And there are records that show there was a fire on board. And not only that, it is argued that the repairs in the areas damaged by the fire were superficial, as if they were trying to minimize the problem or something darker. If we relate it to the impact of the iceberg, the theory suggests that an already weakened hull would have suffered much greater damage. The fire would not be the direct cause, but a factor that amplified everything. Although it must be said that the existence of the fire is proven, its severity and its real impact on the hull's resistance are topics of debate among experts. That's where things get interesting. Because according to your sources, some question whether the fire was intense enough to really affect the steel. And also, there are investigations that point to another weak point, the quality of the Titanic's rivets, a new mystery in the equation. We now enter a terrain where reality and fiction blur, the conspiracy theories. And the recent incident of the Titan submarine has sparked even more interest in these theories, as if maritime disasters pushed us to seek hidden explanations. The immensity of the ocean has always generated explanations that go beyond the accidental. And the Titanic, with its aura of broken unsinkability, is a perfect canvas for these narratives. We can group them into several categories. Let's start with one that has an almost esoteric touch, the secret message. It is said that the original hull number, 391,904, read backwards, said "No Pope," which would have caused sabotage by Catholic workers. An intriguing theory, but one that is dismantled when looking at the facts. To begin with, the real number was 411. At that time, there were no Catholic workers in the shipyard where the Titanic was built due to previous sectarian riots. A baseless legend. And what do you say about the mummy? A story taken from a horror movie. The legend of the cursed mummy, which supposedly brought bad luck, is said to have been taken to New York aboard the Titanic. But there is no proof that a mummy traveled on the Titanic. Passenger and cargo records mention nothing of the sort. A fascinating story, but without a real basis. Then there is the theory of the German submarine attack. Although the Titanic sank before World War I, some believe that a German U-boat could have been involved. A parallel with the sinking of the Lusitania in 1915. Although there is no evidence, some survivors say they saw an unidentified ship and heard explosions near the Titanic, but there is no official confirmation. Now we come to one of the most elaborate theories. The ship switch theory. The Titanic had been replaced by its twin, the Olympic, to collect the insurance. A plot worthy of a novel. The Olympic had suffered a collision in 1911 and repairs were very expensive. The idea would be to sink the Titanic, actually the disguised Olympic, and collect the insurance. Some survivors even mention differences in the internal distribution of the ship. True, but there is a lot of counter-evidence. For example, no remains of the Olympic with construction number 4001 have been found, while many Titanic objects with that number have been found. And the logistics would be madness. Switching two ships without anyone saying anything? Impossible. The Olympics repairs are documented. And there is physical evidence. Construction numbers, the number of portholes between the two ships. And the financial logic doesn't add up. The cost of the Titanic exceeded the amount of the insurance. It wouldn't have been profitable. Besides, parts have been found in the Olympics engines that were not in the Titanic's. And the definitive proof, the shipwreck remains have the number 401. Let's move on to another theory, that of J.P. Morgan, who would have sunk the Titanic to eliminate opponents of the Federal Reserve. It is said that Astor, Guggenheim, and Strauss, who died on the Titanic, opposed the Federal Reserve. And Morgan cancelled his trip at the last minute and owned the parent company of the White Star Line. It sounds like a Hollywood movie, but is there any basis to believe that Morgan could have orchestrated something like that? It's very unlikely. There is no credible evidence or testimony of such a conspiracy. The family connection of Wendy Rush, the wife of the Titan pilot, to the Strauss, has revived the theory, but it remains unfounded. It seems that many of these theories, however attractive they may be, remain just that, theories. Let's move on now to the omens and coincidences that surrounded the disaster, as if destiny were marked. Morgan Robertson's 1898 novel, Futility, is a clear example. The Titan, the fictional ship, was almost identical to the Titanic and sank in a very similar way. A chilling premonition. There are also the coincidental books. The Sinking of the Titan, in 1898, Morgan Robertson, 14 years before the sinking of the Titanic, published a novel titled The Wreck of the Titan or Futility. He imagined a transatlantic liner of gigantic proportions, the Titan, 243 meters long, larger than the Titanic, which was 214 meters. Considered unsinkable by its owners with its numerous watertight compartments, it was launched in the North Atlantic. This ship displayed unparalleled luxury and power, and its owners planned to set a speed record between New York and Liverpool. During the voyage, it collided with an iceberg on the starboard side and sank. It was not equipped with enough lifeboats, and the sinking caused many victims. Coincidence? Stories by William Thomas Stead. In 1886, he wrote a story in which he tells how a ship sinks after colliding with another. The victims are numerous due to the lack of means for rescue. According to the author, this could happen because transatlantic liners went to sea with very few lifeboats. The author participates in a similar exercise in 1892 with From the Old World to the New, in which a passenger traveling aboard the White Star Line's Majestic helps rescue passengers from a ship sunk by an iceberg. The Majestic really exists, and both in the story and in reality, its commanding officer is Edward Smith. 20 years later, the man commands the Titanic for its voyage. And there are more bad omens. The legend of the worker entombed in the hull, the death of a worker during the launch, the lack of a baptism ceremony. The near collision with the New York when leaving Southampton. The second officer's letter with a bad feeling. And the story of the soot-covered stoker who frightened the passengers. Like a ghost announcing the tragedy. And let's not forget the story of the freighter Titanium in 1935. Another legend that at first glance shows some connection with the sinking of the Titanic. On April 13, 1935, a British freighter, carrying coal from Newcastle upon Tyne to Halifax, lay in the darkness of the night near the area where the Titanic sank. One of the observers, William Reeves, recounts that in 1967 he suddenly felt invaded by anxiety, as if alerted by a sixth sense. He couldn't help but say, "Obstacle in a straight line." Then, an iceberg would have emerged from the darkness, and the freighter would have stopped in front of it, before being blocked by ice. According to Reeves, the ship was then in the exact location of the Titanic's sinking. Several sources, particularly Philippe Masson in his work Le Drame du Titanic, also mention that Reeves was born on April 15, 1912, the day the Titanic sank. In reality, this freighter, which was coincidentally called Titanian, was quite far from the sinking site, and there are reports of damage from a collision with ice. It must be clarified that neither the White Star Line nor the builders ever said that the Titanic was unsinkable. The magazine The Shipbuilder described it as virtually unsinkable due to its watertight compartments. That description, confidence in technology, and other incidents where ships did not sink after collisions fueled the belief that the Titanic was invulnerable. A false sense of security. There are stories of passengers who believed that nothing could sink the ship. And Eva Hart's mother, a survivor, had a bad feeling and didn't sleep at night for fear. And the Titanic's speed in the Iceberg area was reckless. Going 21 to 22 knots in an area with icebergs seems crazy today. But it was common practice then. Captains went at maximum speed to meet schedules. It has been said that the captain wanted to win the Blue Ribbon, the award for the fastest crossing. But the Titanic was not as fast as the Mauretania, which had the Blue Ribbon. It couldn't win it. And the pressure from J. Bruce Ismay, president of the White Star Line, to arrive earlier in New York. Is there anything behind it? There are conflicting versions. Some say that Ismay wanted to arrive earlier, but other indications suggest that the arrival was scheduled for Wednesday. The British investigation concluded that the speed was normal, although the disaster proved that it was reckless. Returning to the theories, Robert Essenhay proposed that the speed was due to a fire in a coal bunker that they wanted to extinguish in New York. There was a fire, yes, but it was extinguished before the sinking and did not cause serious damage. It does not justify the speed. And Robert Long's theory about weak expansion joints that would have broken the hull. That theory was discarded after finding the shipwreck remains. The break occurred on the surface, not at the bottom. And simulations showed that the joints were not the cause. The cause was structural weakness due to the large interior spaces. We have sailed through many theories, some credible, others not. But they all reflect our need to find meaning in such a tragedy. It is important to be critical when evaluating these theories, to differentiate speculation from evidence, and to remember that even false theories tell us about the time. Summarizing, the cause of the sinking seems to be a combination of the iceberg, the possible weakness of the hull, and excessive speed. Most conspiracy theories have no evidence. And let's not forget the power of stories. Theories keep the legend of the Titanic alive, inviting us to explore the unknown. To finish, I leave you with a question. Why do some Titanic theories continue to fascinate us so long afterward? What does this say about our relationship with history and disasters? A question that invites us to explore the human mind in history. Thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, you would help me a lot if you subscribed to the channel and gave it a like. And don't forget to leave a comment. I love reading your opinions and suggestions to continue creating content that you like. Until next